So, let's start. You know me already, you've seen me many more times before. Righard Zwienenberg, Senior Research Fellow at ESET. This is my 32nd VB. And my very first presentation at VB was exactly 31 years ago, 1993 in Amsterdam. Over all these years, I have always been doing many duo presentations. You know that one of my good friends is sitting there, Eddie Willems, usually is with me on stage. I thought, yeah, maybe we need something different for this year. So I brought somebody else with me. Josep.
Thanks, Righard. I'm Josep Albors. I'm the Head of Awareness and Research in ESET Spain. I'm not as clever, as handsome, and experienced as Eddie, but I will try to do my best with Righard. And I mean, it's quite new for me to be in an international event, but I will try to do my best with my English. Thank you.
Yeah, well, your English is perfect. So, this is not a presentation about IoT. But I use this slide, IoT, for a reason, because you see it was all really structured and it was easy to follow. But of course, in reality, it is the Internet of Things which is really connected everywhere because it is joined. So what is the problem with it? Every device is consuming energy. It needs electricity or power to run. And basically, that is the problem we now have nowadays. And to show you that, how it is, like the view on it, so we know industrial automation, we had Stuxnet hitting that, not going to talk about that. It takes energy though. Smart health, we already had FDA approved like a beacon in a pill. So it could actually track where the medicine was, so they know that the patient really took the medicine. Again, needs some power, not that relevant. Here we are starting it, smart home. Who has automated the home? And who is too lazy to raise their hand? Yeah, so many people do that, and yes, I have the same, you have the same, everybody has it. It is taking a lot of power, and it also leads open for discussion, like how much power do you really need? Nowadays, we will get to that, how you generate it. And then we have the smart city. Cities are becoming smarter and smarter, or are they? That is actually a good question. The thing is, they all need energy. And when you need energy, something can go wrong. Code blue energy. Code blue is like the code in the hospital when your heart stops beating. And we need energy, Josep.
Yeah, indeed we need. And the problem is that it has become quite difficult in some areas to obtain that energy. And we all know that we are already in a conflict, in a war in Ukraine. And that also affects the cyber aspect of this. To those of you who don't know about the history of cyber attacks concerning critical infrastructures that produce energy, there is some history behind it. Some of them developed and studied by our colleagues and fellows from ESET. And to put some examples, we can talk about the attacks that were suffered some critical infrastructures, power generators and power distributors in Ukraine on December 23rd, 2015. I mean, it's not the best time to get out of the power grid when it's December, it's snowing, and you have a bit of cold in some parts of Ukraine. So those guys behind BlackEnergy developed a malware that were targeting this type of critical infrastructure and also targeting several thousands of people. We're talking about approximately 230,000 people affected in this outage that took around 6 hours. Remember, December. It's not like it's in the middle of summer. It's something that you really need to heat your house. If not, you can get several problems with that. The thing is that wasn't the last attack, as you may know it. Some years later, especially 1 year later, we had the first Industroyer attack, in which we had more sophisticated attack because BlackEnergy was like an evolution of a previous attack. In this case, we had a targeted malware developed for some industrial systems that were used in not just Ukraine, but mostly targeting Ukraine power central units. In this case, we were facing some attacks that were targeted for partition relay and industrial control system. And the most interesting part that our researchers found were that they were not trying to introduce some malware. They were speaking the same language that this industrial control system were using so they can fool them and deactivate some options so the power didn't flow as normally. If you saw some videos from that time, you could see some amazed operators watching that somebody was clicking in the panels while they were able to do nothing. And that was really happening. And if you are in the industry in cybersecurity, you will know that in 2022, after the invasion of Ukraine, in April, we discovered Industroyer 2. But I'm not talking about this because we have excellent papers about that. And it wasn't a successful attack. Why? Because the Ukrainians shared, along with some of our colleagues, help stopping that attack before it was too late. And that's important to remember because we are now facing an era that these types of attacks have become more and more common. They are not still as common as other types of attacks, but we have to face them and we have them in consideration. Because we are talking about critical infrastructure. And here, in this sentence, the word critical means something. It means that if something goes wrong, people will have problems. Or our devices that are useful to our people will have problems. And in this case, if there are power problems, is that they won't turn on or they won't function as they were intended to. Unluckily, there's not only the cyber part of this type of attacks. We also have other problems. Even in a very well prepared country as it is Japan, something like a magnitude 9 earthquake, like the great Tohoku earthquake in 2011, can produce several damages, as you all sadly know. In this case, when it's related to our topic, this affected with a high-intensity tsunami, a power plant which is called Fukushima Daiichi, causing the meltdown of several reactors, and until now we are seeing the consequences, despite that the government is doing its best to at least control the situation in the area, which, from what I've read and my colleagues from Japan tell me, is quite controlled compared to other critical situations regarding nuclear power plants, such as Zaporizhzhia. What's happening there? I mean, we're talking about a nuclear power plant which is the biggest in Europe, which is right now controlled by Russian military, which is right now hosting several troops in there, which is quite dangerous to have people with guns, bombs, and rockets inside the nuclear power plant. And also it's being used as a threat to the rest, not just of Ukraine, but also for Europe. We can see some news talking about what's the problem or not having the appropriate control of the situation in this nuclear power plant, or even the most basics security procedures being avoided by the people that are now occupying this nuclear power plant. So these are more physical problems than cyber problems, but we still have to take account in them. Because if we don't, and we have to remember that we are in a war scenario in Ukraine, some of the parts involved, in this case Russia, can use this type of critical infrastructures to produce more damage than rather just cut off the energy. Like, for example, destroying a dam, which could cause flood. And it's not only the problem, which is a big one, to flood several populations, hundreds of thousands of people affected, but it's also the problem that this dam, which was the biggest in the country, also provided a lot of energy for all the cities, all the devices, everything that's connected. And that's a problem because you have not only people that have his house flooded, but also a lot of people that cannot turn on the basics, such as the heat or even an oven to prepare some food.
So let's bring it closer to home.
Yep.
Actually to our homes. So solar panels, everybody is investing in them. I myself got 17 solar panels on my roof. I'm generating more energy than I really need, and I supplied it to the grid. And that is actually really good, because actually when you have a flood, when you have a flood and the power goes out in the electricity central and your house is still dry, at least you have power. So I could actually live on in my house with everything, my fridge, my television, my computer, my son's game computer, really important. So he will not get afraid that he is like losing a lot, except for internet, of course, that will go. but everything in my house will keep working. And I can actually generate a lot of power that way. My 17 solar panels are generating 5.7 megawatt hour in a year. That's a lot for a household, although we are using a little bit more. My son is a gamer.
So he has a lot of fancy LEDs in the computer.
Not only that, he has like an RTX 4090 card.
Okay, that's a cheap one.
When the system is on, it runs at 650 watts just for that. And we have all these nice apps that can actually show you how much you are generating. So you can actually supply it back to the grid as well when you have like a surplus, too much. Now, that is one of the things which is really nice. But then something happened. This is Bratislava, the Opera House. And I was there, I'm there often because ESET has the headquarters, but we have something different, and not only in Bratislava, but the whole world is changing. The climate is changing. Rain, storm, no energy, or an overkill of energy, like we had heat waves. And even that bad, that the power companies are shutting down the solar panels because they are overloading the grid. There's too much power sent into the grid. Now that's worrying because if the power company can shut down my solar panels, which means they have access to it, somebody else could do that too. And I have like solar panels with an independent microconverter on the back, each and every one of them. And they go into a box, and the box is connected to the internet. It's nice for the firmware update, but also nice for the power company who can shut them down. And that's what they are already doing in the Netherlands when there's like an overkill of power being generated. Why? Because our power grid is too old, it cannot handle the flow. So suddenly you think you have generated energy by enough, but they shut them down and now you are consuming energy and paying for that. Not a good thing. And we use more and more, right? By 2030, for instance, the average emission for the cars must drop to 55% compared to 2021. The government's pushing everybody to go to electric cars. Electric cars, again, consume energy, a lot of energy. Now, this is a problem, first of all, because in the Netherlands you cannot charge your car everywhere. We have plenty of charging stations, but if your house is on a street and there's a pavement in between the street and your house, you cannot charge your car because you're not allowed to have a cable or whatever other construction there to have your car being charged using your own solar panels. So you need to have like a parking space on your own property, and then it's possible. So right now in the Netherlands, also because we have an energy transition when they are paying less money now for your solar panels, we see that people actually move back from buying electric cars to hybrids, combustion and electricity, just to be sure that they can actually drive. And at the end, I have a really nice surprise, a little movie, fun with electric cars. But that said, we need more of those chargers, but they need to be giving power to the car. But what if there is no power, no energy? In 2035, in Europe, all cars have to be zero emission, but there's not enough charging stations. If you look like in Europe and you want to travel on holiday, you really have to plan your course really good, because otherwise you're without power.
Yep.
And then we have the other problem. If everything becomes electric, we also have service vehicles. And they also have to become electric. They need power. What if there is no power? I mean, you can imagine this. If you just look at Gaza, and I'm not going to take any stand in that argument there, but Israel took all the oil away from Gaza. They couldn't generate electricity anymore. If there's no electricity, service vehicles that are like electric don't drive. So that is a big problem. And we really have to look into how to solve this problem. So in the Netherlands, there's a big movement right now, and I don't know how it is in different countries, but I think it's coming, that they even have like solar panel suppliers become designated as a critical infrastructure. Because although they can shut them down, they want more and more people still to be generating their own power. And then putting the money in as well to improve the power grid. That will take decades before everything is being upgraded. But it has to start somewhere. And there's also some European legislation coming that will actually make the suppliers of these solar panels responsible if they are not doing the proper cybersecurity. Remember, I told you I have 17 solar panels with independent microconverters. They all connect to the internet. How are they protected? Through that single box, maybe? I don't know. We have to look into that. How is that box protected? Can somebody access the box from the outside? Yes, the power company. So if they can, a hacker could too. So we really have to look into that. So luckily there's already like some regulation for some baseline requirements for consumers, consumer Internet of Things. Not going to dig into that. You can like look it up if you just Google for this ETC number. But things are luckily coming. And we really have to pay attention to the power. And also in the Netherlands, of course I'm from the Netherlands, so I have lots of examples from there. I go on holidays quite often with my wife and my kids to a bungalow. And right now, these bungalows are all inclusive, like water, gas, electricity is all included. Now they are patrolling the parks at night because people are charging their electric car based on the power from the bungalow. You can actually buy converted for 220, 230 to charge your car. That is not within the price of the bungalow. So they are patrolling to make sure that people are not charging their cars. They did an estimate, and when I made the estimation, it was a bit cheaper because the price of energy increased, but it was €16 a night the owners of the bungalows lost because people were charging their cars. And they have now personnel walking around at night to make sure that doesn't happen. You can imagine how much damage they have because they have to hire personnel to patrol like the park. So it's an interesting concept. And I told you I would also have some fun. Is it related to energy? Absolutely. Is it related to energy? Absolutely not, because it's also fun. I like toys, gadgets, so I have a Flipper Zero. Who has a Flipper Zero here? Oh, good. So, I was driving with my son around the neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. And I said, okay, let's have some fun with the Teslas. So let's start the video. So we just have like to send out one signal. And here we have a Tesla somewhere down the street. And then he's pressing. And this will go on, and there's many more. And eventually we got to the car dealer Tesla, which is in our neighborhood too. And we drove around, and that will be coming after this. And eventually, when we were there for the third time, the Tesla mechanics came outside. Because every time we drove by and we pressed the button, it was not only the Tesla on the street, which is here, but the dealer is on the right-hand side of this shot. You can see the port opening. But every car charging port in the car dealer went open. They were not really happy. And I talked to them. I said, okay, this is a security risk, actually. It's an energy problem, but also a security problem, and they refused to accept that. They said, you cannot steal the car that way. I said, no, that's true. So, but now imagine I'm going on a holiday, or I'm going to the north of the Netherlands, which you can do it on one, sorry, you cannot do that on one charged battery. But my car is fully charged. I know halfway there is like a gas station where I can charge my car again. And then continue. And then I'm coming to the car, to the gas station, open the panel, and then to notice that somebody else did that before and really stuffed my connector. Denial of service. Again, an energy problem. And they still refuse to believe that. And I guess we have to do it somehow. It's not me.
No, I mean, there's a lot of problems with this type of, not just devices, but the way that we use it. And the problem, and you have said it before, that there is a European regulation. There's also American one. I think some countries in Asia that are trying to implement it, but they are not forcing them enough. So until the fines come, the developers of this type of devices that we already use at home won't care if you cannot upgrade the firmware, there's not security. They just want you to buy the new version.
Yeah. So the last thing you saw was actually just the garage door opening. I'm playing around a lot with flippers. It's actually, okay, spoiler, this is a presentation Josep and I are working on for like another conference. So you may see it sooner or later, like lots of fun things you can do with Flipper. But that said, we have a lot of problems with energy.
We have a lot of problems, and we are talking not only about cybersecurity problems. We are in a security conference, and we know that there have been a lot of incidents, and they are increasing recently, as we have seen by several researchers. But we don't have to forget that it's not just some APT or some threat actor that is baked by a nation state that wants to interrupt the power from our local city or even a bigger region. But it's also the problem that we are vulnerable more and more as long as we adapt this type of solutions, for example, for mobility, if the power grid goes down. And you mentioned that in Netherlands, the power grid is not that
it's
good.
old.
It's the same in Spain. It's the same in the US. Somebody from Texas here? No? Well, yeah. You remember what happened 2 years ago, January? Well, it's something that we have to take into account because we are not being prepared, and or our power plants or even the way of distributing this energy into our house, into our devices, into our cars, is not being prepared as fast as we are implementing new devices connected, not just to the internet, but also to the power grid. And this is something that we need to face. Have to think out of the box, and okay, it's all right to focus in our area of expertise, which is cybersecurity, but it's also good to remember those people that are making decisions or they are taking important takeaways in our lives that we need to focus on assuring that if something goes wrong, either it's a cyber attack or either it's a natural disaster or whatever, we can have a backup plan so we can recover as fast as possible and attend all the emergencies that could happen. And I don't know if every country or even every one of us is prepared to affront this type of situation. Just think how many of you will be able to sustain yourself or your family for around 2 weeks. Not 3 days, as people will say normally in the emergency programs, 2 weeks. That would be quite difficult for some people in some areas, especially the more populated ones. And if we're talking about this, it's because we have seen the possibilities that focused cyber attack or a disaster can provoke in our society right now. And we are going to a place that maybe is some place that we are not willing to go if we are not prepared enough. So that's my conclusion.
That said, I'm really happy here to be with you for the first time on this stage. So I hope you liked it.
Yeah,
I hope you liked it. And if you have any questions, Josep will be answering them.